What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Health Mastery Show. I'm Adam, your host as always, and today I have on with me John Sonmez from Bulldog Mindset. So I've been watching John's YouTube channels for a couple of years now and decided to reach out to him. I think his philosophy and way of thinking is something that I really wanted to kind of emulate on this podcast when I originally started. He's obviously extremely fit if you know him or if you follow him. He's just ran his first ultramarathon, but he also works out a lot. But John also shows how he makes all his money. He makes like hundreds of thousands a year and he breaks it down on YouTube, and I find that really, really interesting. But he's also a huge fan of Stoic Philosophy and implementing that mindset. He made this crazy transformation from being unmotivated, out of shape, to someone who's kind of got their shit together. They've like making tons of money, running in these ultra marathons, working out, got his kind of relationship down, got pretty much every part of his lifestyle down that, say, a young man would want to kind of aspire to be like. So I really thought that he would be great to have on this show, and we had a really, really interesting conversation. So if you do like this show, or if you're watching this show or listening to it, please tag me at AdamMac192. Post it up, let me know what your thoughts are, and please do leave some feedback, review, reach out to me, whatever. Anything you can do to help improve this show going forward is always going to be helpful. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with John Sonmez. John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, man. So I've been following you for a number of years, I think, on YouTube. Your channel is called Bulldog Mindset, right? So I don't know, maybe you explain what exactly your channel is about. You're better than I would be.
Yeah, so really what my channel is about is, I don't like the terminology, but I was just thinking about this because I was trying to make some ads for the channel. I don't really do paid advertising. And really it's about how to become an alpha male. Right. Again, I don't really like the terminology, but that's the closest thing that I can come to. I call it the Bulldog Mindset. And really what that really encompasses is eliminating the victim mindset. Right. So many people today, especially in society, have this victim mindset where they blame their responsibilities, they blame things on other people. And the Bulldog Mindset is really about taking charge, taking responsibility, a very stoic approach to life. And so really what I try to do is I try to reach as many men as possible and teach them how to be men. It's something that really today in society we don't get taught and is almost discouraged, right? There's this idea of toxic masculinity and so much that men are confused, right? They don't know, they don't have these rites of initiation that existed before. So the way I do that is essentially through 4 pillars, right? 4 areas. One being mindset, which is most important, which all of my mindset content is pretty much deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy. The second one is through wealth, through financial, like to be able to build a business or invest, and especially today, because as a man, you don't really have a voice unless you have money, because you'll be silenced, So, and then the third way is through fitness, right? Through overcoming, discipline, mastering your body, getting the physique you want. And then the fourth way is through social relationships, especially for men, women, and handling women and the whole dating aspect of that. So by building up men in those 4 areas, I seek to create strong men.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Some areas that I personally very interested in. I remember when I was I think I was maybe 19. So 9 years ago, I was living in France and I read Tony Robbins' book. But the reason I read that book first and kind of got into self-development was because I learned of Tony Robbins from Owen Cook or RSD Tyler. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So the kind of the guy that was in the game, right? So I've been following that. I've kind of grown out of that, I suppose I would say, out of that kind of chasing people around a nightclub. But that really did get me into kind of personal development, because looking at some of your photos, and I don't mean to offend you, but you look completely different. I mean, you kind of previously looked like somebody that would be in like a movie as like a stereotypical kind of geek or nerd. It looks like you're overweight, right? Maybe that was like 20 years ago or 10 years ago or something like that. But now you seem to have like a really good physique, no homo, but you look like you're lean all the time. You're very muscular. You obviously work out and have a lot of knowledge and apply that knowledge as well. But from following you, you also are very successful in your business, and you're very transparent with how you've made your money and what you make, what you do to make that money. So tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are today, both physically and as a financially as well, and mentally. I suppose that would umbrella that.
Yeah, so I actually am a pretty big fan of Tony Robbins. A lot of what he says as well, and a lot of my story actually relates to that. It's not like everything changed all at once, but I had different what he would call breakthroughs that have happened throughout my life that have really changed my mindset. And really, I would say that I believe that our physical manifestations, like our outward world, is a reflection of our inward world. And so when people look at me, the most drastic change they see is the physical change, right? But the most drastic change that happened was a mental change. And that's when I look at my story, basically I started out as, just a typical nerd. I was very lazy. I was very shy. I was out of shape. I wasn't a popular kid in school. And I was, your typical kind of nerd. I became a software developer. And I was just weak. I didn't have really mental discipline. I didn't have strength. I was fairly smart. I was successful as a software developer to some degree, but, there was something missing from my life. And to a large degree, right, I didn't discover this till later, is I didn't really know what it meant to be a man. I didn't, I never felt that. Even as I became an adult, I felt like an adult boy, which I think a lot of men feel like today. It's kind of hard to admit that. But really, I would look around and see other men, and I just would say, I don't understand what the difference is. And no, there was no one really to teach me what that difference was. So what ended up happening, a few different breakthroughs. Like I said, one of the key points was, probably somewhere in high school when things started to change for the first time. I had this idea in my head. I woke up in the morning and I remember thinking to myself, why not me, right? And at that point, I got this idea that I could envision who I wanted to become, and then I could just act as if I were already that person, sort of playing the role as an actor, playing that part. And what I found was that when you play that part, then you become that part. And that really was key, as I realized that I could transform. I could become whatever I wanted just by almost a fake it till you make it approach to life. Now, that only carried me so far, and I ended up going down the path of, I never really conquered all the demons, and I ended up gaining a lot of weight and really changing in some ways but not changing in other ways. And that's some of the pictures that you've seen where I was overweight and just looked like shit, and that's how I was. And then I think what really started to change that was the mindset change. So I started reading some books. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The first time I read it, I threw it away halfway through. I was like, this is a bunch of crap. I don't need this new age psychobabble type of BS. And then, I kept on running into like wealthy people who I would ask them, successful people, what books do you recommend? And one of them just kept on coming up, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a second chance here. So I read through the book, and I kind of kept more of an open mind. And then I read, I started doing some sales and marketing, and so I started to read the books that those people read, and it was really good stuff. It was like Psycho-Cybernetics, it was, Awaken the Giant Within. So that kind of introduced me to Tony Robbins, and I always thought he was just kind of this loud, kind of scammy guy, until I actually read what he said. And I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, Date with Destiny, and one thing that really sort of drastically changed my life at that point, I was already making a lot of physical changes. I was getting in shape. I was developing mental discipline. I had learned about Stoic Philosophy, but I was still living my life in such a way that I was trying to protect myself from the outside. Like I was still living with a lot of fear. And I was at a Tony Robbins seminar, The Date with Destiny, and he said that the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. And that really struck me, because I realized that even though I had achieved a lot of these things in life, at this point I was successful financially. I had built some businesses. I had, kind of retired from real estate investment, and I had built a decent physique, not quite what I wanted, but, I had a lot of things going for me. I realized that my life was miserable because I couldn't deal with uncertainty. Everything I was doing in life was trying to build this certainty. I was trying to make it so I built financial certainty, so that I built relationship certainty, emotional certainty, physical certainty, and security. And, at that point I was afraid to fly in airplanes. I was afraid of roller coasters. I had all these fears. I was still socially afraid of rejection. And when he said that, I realized like it was an instant value system change for me. Like I immediately threw out my old value system and realized that I needed to embrace the uncertainty and just accept whatever consequences. Basically, I developed this philosophy of saying, I'm going to live my life how I choose, and I will accept whatever consequences come from that, even if it's death, even if it's an early death. So I stopped fearing things. I started developing the habit of courage, and I started saying, it's better to live and to fully live your life and just accept whatever consequences come as a man than it is to live in fear or to try and build this false security, because the security that we build in life is not actually real anyway. It can be all swept away, just as we've been seeing lately what's been going on in the world. All of these things that we took for granted, like being able to buy toilet paper or go to the store and get what you want, or to be able to walk outside of your house, or to, all of these things, they instantly got taken away from us because, there is no security outside of us. And that's really kind of the core tenet of Stoic Philosophy, which is basically to say that, it is what is inside you that counts. And if you live your life basically where you are dependent on something outside of you, you're going to be weak and you're going to be vulnerable to that situation at all times. So really this all sort of came together, and when I adopted that mindset and started facing these fears and facing these challenges, it's like everything unlocked for me. All of a sudden, my physique got better than it ever was. I developed the mental discipline that I needed to do that. I started running marathons. I just finished my first ultra marathon this last Saturday. I did a 50-miler, and I've been able to do things that I never thought were possible, because it's all of those things lay on the other side of fear.
Yeah, so I guess it's pretty rare to meet somebody or to hear a story about somebody who changes almost all areas of their life, like completely overhauls them, or at least that's what it appears. So I think when people would see you, like just from your physical and what they first see, they would think you're dedicated, you're someone who has a lot of commitment. But as you mentioned, you didn't have that initially. Was that kind of a moment in time that when you heard that everything changed? And how did that trickle down into you actually getting better results? What was it that changed on a day-to-day basis? You kind of mentioned the fake it till you make it, or basically do what the person you're trying to become does. Was there somebody that you had in your mind that you said, I'm trying to work towards becoming that particular person, so I'm going to wake up and eat like them, I'm going to train like them, I'm going to run my business like them?
So the key for it to me was really, and this is where I think a lot of people get into this whole idea of like, don't try and be someone you're not, be authentic, be yourself, be your real self. Well, I never really envisioned someone other than myself. What I envisioned was the future version of myself, like the ideal version of myself. And I wanted to pretend like I was already that person, right? And I think that was one of the big secrets, the big keys, right? When I'm 230 pounds. I'm not really built to run ultra marathons, but I just finished my first ultra marathon. I don't know how many people have done it at my weight. And what I did in order to do that is I didn't say, is it possible? I didn't say, I want to run an ultra marathon. I said, I'm going to start training like an ultra marathoner. I'm going to pretend like I'm already an ultra marathoner, and I'm just going to hire a coach, and I'm going to start doing the running plan that an ultra marathoner runs. And by the actions you do is what you become. Your actions. So anyone can become anything they want by just doing the actions of the person that they want to become. And again, like I said, it's better to envision the person who is yourself, right? And it's authentic. It's true, because what I believe is that whatever we want to become, that's who we truly are. It's just that we have all this crap in the way that prevents us from getting there. So we have to sort of dig deep and figure out, like, if you have some aspirations to be something or to do something, it's because that it's not inauthentic. It is the most authentic thing. It's just that the reason why you have those desires is because that's who you truly are. But there's all these other layers, all this other stuff, this fear of rejection, this fear of failure, right? all of these other things that are preventing you from doing it. And so I think we can all kind of just look within and look at it and say, okay, who if I had no limits, who could I be? Like, what would I be? What would I look like? What would I sound like? How would I act? What would I do in my life? And then to start pretending that you're already that person. Because if you start pretending like you're already that person, just like I said with the ultra running, right? I wasn't an ultra runner, but I am now because I started running like an ultra runner. And that's the key, is if you start doing that. And so for me, that was one of the big things. Along with that, I'd say there's two other kind of fundamental pillars that changed in my life on a daily basis. One of them was the Stoic Philosophy, right? I really recommend that everyone read Seneca's letters to Lucilius, or Lucius, however it's pronounced, but that is really, really good book or set of letters that have been written. A good introduction to Stoic Philosophy is Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. That's also a good one. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is also kind of a core one. But by developing that Stoic Philosophy, that really changed my life on a daily basis, because I started changing my focus. Because most people are focused on goals, and I was focused on goals, right? It's like, I want to get the money, I want to get the girls, I want to get the whatever it is, the house, the car, right? And what I realized, and maybe you've gone through this competing professionally, is when I achieve the goal, usually what comes right after achieving that goal, even when you win, is a huge depression. And the reason why that you go through that is because you've devoted your whole life to this thing, and you see this as the thing that you're trying to achieve and obtain. And when you get it, it's not that great. It doesn't, like, that magical transformation of feeling like your life is supposed to be all better now. It doesn't happen. And now you've lost focus, and you don't have something to strive towards anymore. And so you lose purpose. And when you lose purpose in life, you lose hope. And when you lose hope, you fall into depression and despair. And so when I shifted to the Stoic mindset, I really shifted to looking at goals as the things that I set in order to move my character in a direction that I want to become, right? So instead of the goal being the end, the goal is just something that allows me to push myself in a direction of becoming the person I want to become. So again, I could use the ultra marathon example, because a lot of people ask me, they said, well, John, why are you running a 50-mile run? It doesn't make sense. You're not even built for this. It's not, what's your purpose, right? And realistically, I'm not going to win a race being 230 pounds, okay, running an ultra. Like, guys that are like 130, 140 pounds, those are guys winning those, right? And I don't have the genetics for it anyway. I'm not going to, it's not the most healthy thing I can do for my body. Running 50 miles is not healthy. It destroys your body to some degree, right? But I wanted to be the guy, like, the reason why I set that goal was because I wanted to be the guy who did it. And because I knew that by setting that goal and going on that journey, it's about who I become in that journey. And that would move me further in the direction of who I want to become. And so I started looking at all my goals and all my life as that, as something, as the value, the only value being not what I have, but who I become. And so when I started looking that way, that was a big change. And then the third one was just this simple concept of being a finisher. This idea that, whatever I start, I'm going to finish it. And I have I had what I call the closet of broken dreams, right? We all have this closet where we have like the soccer cleats in there and the yellow belt for karate and, half of a novel that we wrote, or really we only got through chapter 1 of it, and all these things that we never finish. And those things that you never finish in life, that you give up on, they have no value. They're completely worthless. It's like a bridge that's built 90% of the way or 99% of the way. It's completely worthless. It's just a waste of time. And so I started committing to finishing everything, right? If I train for something, I'm going to do it. I'm never giving up. I'm going to finish the things that I start. And that was something that totally changed my life. That was what really made me financially successful and helped me to achieve the things in life. Because it works twofold. One, the things that you embark upon, you complete and you succeed at and you get the benefit from. But second also is that you don't do a lot of things because you think about it and you say, well, I'm not going to start this unless I'm going to finish it. And that was key as well.
Yeah, I think that point, it really hits home. And I think, I don't know if it's because social media, pretty much grown up most of my life with social media. Like, I'm nearly 30, but most of my teenage life it's been social media, but people get that validation from, even if it's not on social media, but saying that they're going to do something, that almost gives them all the external validation that they needed before they ever even begin. So I'm going to do like a marathon. You post it on Facebook, you get like 200 likes or whatever. Loads of people giving you congratulations, but then you don't actually have to do it. You just have to say you're going to do it. And that can kind of suffice for what you're trying to look for externally. And the points on the goals really sounds like James Clear. I had him on the podcast a while ago about goals are like a specific point in time, and they rob you of happiness or satisfaction because you're just working towards that goal, and it's like an if then. So I'll be happy when I reach that goal, or I'll be satisfied when this happens, rather than the process or the journey. And they kind of are at odds with the long-term progress, because I'm sure now that you've competed or completed this 50 mile run, this ultra marathon, it's not that you're going to go back on the couch and start eating, potato chips and Snickers bars again. It's not, okay, I've done the goal, now I'm finished. That was just like a post along the journey that you're on, right?
Exactly. In fact, I'm training for, I'll be honest with you, when I was at like 34 of that 50 mile run this last weekend, I pretty much swore off running for the rest of my life. And said that I'm never going to run again after this. But by the next day, I was talking to my coach, and I'm training for a 100-mile race now. So, and again, it's the same reason. It's because, you know what? I just became the person who can run a 50-mile race. So now I'm going to become the person who can do 100. And that is a path of growth. Like, I know now after running 8.5 hours and in running 50 miles, to think that I would only be halfway done with a 100-mile race. And the fact that makes me feel like it's impossible means I still have a long way to grow, because it is possible. And I want to become the person that can do that mentally, right? Again, and really, I think, that's why I like running. Like, I started running marathons, and why I like distance running is because the mental aspect of it. Because really, anyone can run 30 miles. You can train to run 30 miles. It's not easy, but you can be trained to do that. But running the last 20, right? Going from past 30 miles to 50 miles, it's completely mental. It's 100% mental at that point. And so that's the challenge of it. That's the thing that really, it stretches you. It shapes you, right? I really believe that the only way that we can actually grow our character is at those worst moments, when it's sort of like, you think about that analogy of purifying gold, right? You have to like melt the gold and the impurities rise to the top. It's the same thing. We have to be put under that fire. Those are the only moments where we can find out who we truly are and change who we truly are. And most people live through lives and never challenge themselves to the point. And so they never get to know who they are, and they never get to change who they are. They're just stuck on this default mode that they're running through life at. But when you do something that really physically pushes you, and you know this because you've trained for bodybuilding competitions, and doing those last couple of weeks of cuts, it's just it's hell, right? So you really figure out who you are, right? Anyone who's fasted for a couple of days, anyone who's gotten ready for a show, they know, like, you find out, like, when you're deprived, when you're in pain, that's who you really are. Like, everything else is just fake on top of that. But whatever you are at your lowest is who you actually are underneath it all. And that's the only opportunity you have to change that. So that's,
yeah, you've really just explained kind of what I go through, or why I do natural bodybuilding. It's because it sounds really bizarre to like friends that I've had for my whole life. They don't see, like, they wonder, like, why you get on stage and paint yourself with this fake tan and wear like a thong. It's ridiculous. And if you look at it that way, it is ridiculous. And to do like, and then if your goal is to be as muscular as possible, why don't you just use steroids? They're not that unhealthy unless you're using tons of them. And I do natural bodybuilding. You say, well, what's the point in that? And you just nailed the point why I actually do it. It's not for just to look bigger or to get as physically big as possible, but it's just to push through that, because I feel it really matures you. It probably embodies that Stoic philosophy, right? So like you can't become a Stoic, or you can't practice Stoicism by just reading the books. You have to do the hard things. You have to endure the hardship for this delayed gratification, or to build your character. So what ways have you found that you've been able to apply that Stoic philosophy? Obviously, you mentioned the ultra marathons, but is there other ways that you felt that you've been able to take those learnings and put them into practice? Because I know a lot of people have been reading Stoicism, and it's definitely getting more popular with the likes of Ryan Holiday or Donald Robertson putting these kind of easy spins on Stoicism, or more understandable spins on Stoicism. But how would you give advice to somebody to translate that into actual growing their character?
Do hard shit, and do stuff you don't like every single day. That's the key. Like, you need to, some people say, do something you fear every single day. I say do something that you don't like every single day. That's what keeps you hard. That's what keeps you from getting soft. And the only way you can do that is to learn to treat life, again, like a marathon, where not like a sprint, right? Like, so many people are living their lives trying to get through the day and thinking about the challenges of that day as something that they just have to endure, and trying to get to the weekend, or trying to get to some reprieve, trying to get to the point where they can rest. When I did Muay Thai, kickboxing, it was always like, when can I put my arms down and stop guarding my face? Because my shoulders are getting tired. The answer is never. It's when you want to get punched in the face is when you can do that, or kicked in the face. That's when you can do it. Otherwise, you don't do it. And, letting your guard down. And that's the thing, is like, when you view life as it's supposed to be difficult and it's supposed to be a challenge, and every day you're supposed to wake up and you're going to fight the battle, then you're not looking at the things in terms of trying to get through them. And I think that's really what's key in that, with Stoic philosophy, that's helped me to do that, and also to manage emotions, right? Especially as a man, I think this is really important, is that I just really don't experience negative emotions anymore. Hardly any at all. And when I do, I let them go almost immediately, because I don't need to get emotional about things. If something is happening that's outside of my control, I don't need to stress or worry about it or get upset or complain about it. I can just deal with that, just playing the game as the ball lies. And that's one thing, that I really learned from Stoic philosophy, is just this idea that almost everything is outside of your control, but what is in your control is your interpretation of the situation and the actions that you take. And, that's helped me a lot just in relationships with people, in the sense that I used to try to control people, and I used to get upset when people didn't do what I wanted. And I used to allow people to control me with guilt. And then as I discovered this and discovered the Stoic philosophy, I realized that I could just let people do whatever they want. It's not my job to make them, like, they don't have to please me. They don't have to do what I have an option. My option is to be in a relationship with them or not, or to spend time with them or not. And if people aren't doing what I want, then I don't have to spend time with them, right? And the same thing with allowing people to guilt you, right? I realized that there was a lot of things I was doing in life were being done out of compulsion or obligation instead of my free will and my choice. And those things were rendered meaningless. They have no value if you're not doing them out of your own free will because you want to do them. And so I stopped doing things that I don't want to do. I basically just told people that try to guilt me or try to put some kind of obligation on me that I don't owe anyone anything, and I don't have to do anything that I don't want to. And you're responsible for your own feelings, and I'm responsible for mine. And no offense, but no, saying the word no. And that just takes huge burden off your shoulders, right? And that's really the Stoic approach to life, is just to say, hey, you control what you control. You're responsible for your emotions. No one else is responsible. You can't depend on the external world. You can only depend on what you have within yourself. And so, yeah, that's how I tend to look at everything in life. And, even when bad things happen, like I had this year, I think I did some videos on it, but when the whole COVID-19 thing hit, the stock market, I had moved some money over finally to, move like $600,000 or $700,000 into like a wealth fund account. And I lost like $150,000 in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks time frame. And I just kept on going. Like, I didn't dwell on it. I didn't even really get upset about it. It's just, hey, it happened. So that's what happened. Right. So whereas I think me, before having the Stoic mindset, I would have been so upset. I would have been like, just like wasting so much emotional energy being upset about this. But it's not like I like to lose money or to have something bad happen, but I just accept it and move on, right? Because that's what I have control of. That's what I can do. And so that it's just immensely helpful in your daily life, because you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have things that don't go your way. And really, I think one of the other kind of core tenets of Stoic philosophy is this amor fati, or the love of fate. Is like the idea that everything, you just love what happens, right? You just say, okay, well, if this happened, then I accept it. And it's because most of us are living lives in denial. We're trying to reject the reality of the situation, and we want to fight against that. And it's the most ridiculous waste of your energy, because reality is reality. You should just accept reality, and you shouldn't have any kind of feelings, good or bad, about reality. It just is what it is. And if you're going to do anything, love reality, love the fact that things happen the way they did, because that was the way that they're supposed to happen, and that's the only way they could have happened, because the cause and effect of the universe, the things, it works perfectly. There's no mistakes that are being made. Like it's the same rules apply to everyone at that level, and so it was supposed to happen that way. And so that's one of the big things that I apply, is just to immediately accept when something happens in life. Just accept that.
And do you think that there's someone should take a gradient approach to this? So I can imagine that, you'll get a lot of young guys that are probably, hungry and they want the world, and they're very ambitious, and they really lap this stuff up, and there's kind of a David Goggins mentality off you. I can really sense that, or at least that's the kind of similar story where he's got this very strong mindset. But I guess as someone gets older and older and they haven't been able to achieve the goals that they want, they'll start to become more skeptical, as if, oh, that's not me, that's not, that's great, but it's a bit too esoteric for me. Like, I'm not able to achieve that. Do you think that there's a gradient approach where someone would slowly work their way into this, or is this kind of a thing where you wake up in the morning and then you've kind of just decided this is going to be the rest of my life?
Yeah, it's hard to say, what are the things that actually, like, here's what I'll say about this, is that we can't actively change our beliefs. It's not possible. So if I tell you that there's such thing as pink flying elephants, it doesn't matter how much you want to believe that. You cannot force yourself to believe that, because it's not true, right? We cannot change our beliefs by force. We cannot just adopt a new belief. And so many of us actually make arguments against people trying to think that we could actually convince them in such a way that they could just change their belief, as if we can convince someone to change their belief. It's not possible. But it is possible to change your beliefs indirectly. And so what I would say is that, basically, I'd ask this question. If you put a cucumber into pickle brine, what does it become? It becomes a pickle, right? So you are what you brine in. And so there's basically two ways that we can change our beliefs. The first way is to control what we brine in, right? So that's why books are so important, right? If you want to become a positive person, if you want to become someone who has a Stoic mindset, who has a Bulldog mindset, who has a David Goggins mindset, then surround yourself in that environment. Read a bunch of books, read Relentless, read, Resilience, read David Goggins' book, and, Can't Hurt Me, and associate with those people, join a group. That's why I created something like Bulldog Mindset, is to get men together that have these kind of views. But regardless, find the people, find the influences, cut the people out of your life that are negative, cut the people out of your life that are bringing you down, that don't have the mindset that you want to have. So that's what we can control. And turn off the TV. Turn off the TV. It's called programming for a reason, because it's programming you. Instead, listen to some podcasts. Instead, read books, like I said. Instead, control the media that goes into your brain, because whatever you brine in, that's what you'll become. So that's the first way. And then the second way is that it's through our actions, what we talked about before. Someone asked me again, how can I become a runner? I don't know how to become a runner. How could you even do this? I'm not built for this. I don't have the discipline. I don't have the, I'm like, I'll tell you what, if you start running 10 miles every day, you'll become a runner. About 3 months of that. Now, someone might say, oh, I can't run 10 miles. Well, you can. You could just run a mile and then walk for a little bit, and then run a mile and then walk for a little bit, or run half a mile, however you can. You could bust it out if you want to. And the first day, I forget what book it's in, there's this whole Navy SEALs thing where they call it being a sugar cookie, or what is it? The circus, right? The circus, that's what it is. And it's basically when they're doing their PT, they're doing their training, the person who ends up last in the training, they have to do more. They have to do double the training. So they're going to be even more tired the next day, and then they're going to be last again. And so that's going to give them the penalty of doing more training. But after so many days, what ends up happening is that they actually end up becoming moving up and becoming like maybe even the leader, maybe even becoming faster, because they're at some point doing so much extra is beating you down. But at some point, doing so much extra, you build up a higher capacity because you're training more than other people, and so it actually starts to kick over the other way. And it's the same thing here. Is it's like, if you want to change your beliefs, take the actions, right? If you take the actions of someone who has the belief system that you want to have, then you will become that thing. And so that's really, really the key. Is like, if you want to start developing a Stoic mindset, surround yourself with Stoic philosophy, read Stoic philosophy, get around people who have the Bulldog mindset, who have the discipline, who have calloused their brain, and then also start taking the action, start doing hard stuff, start doing Stoic things, try doing some fasts, start doing some things that are going to make you physically uncomfortable. Practice poverty, practice discomfort. Go put yourself in awkward social situations, right? For guys, like, with dating, it's like, just go out there and just go look like an idiot. Go talk to a girl and like face the fear and those things will transform you and change you, and they will change your belief system. And then pretty soon before you know it, you'll be a Stoic and you'll start actually holding that belief.
So do you do physical feats, like whether that's exercise-wise or diet-wise, like you mentioned fasting? Do you do those for beyond actual physical changes, but more physiological changes, like you said, callousing your brain? Is that something that you implement into your routine and recommend?
Yeah,
people?
absolutely. Right. I mean, like I was saying with the ultra running a 50-mile race is not, it's not the physically best thing for you. Right. It's maybe running like half marathons or marathon or somewhere along that, so many miles is healthy and will increase your cardiovascular. But when you train to the point of running like 50-mile, 100-mile race, like you actually are potentially damaging your system or possibly damaging your heart in some cases. So it's not actually the most healthy thing. But the reason why I do it anyway, and again, I'm not trying to scare people from doing this stuff. If you're ramping up, you're pretty safe in general, right? And a lot of people do this. But what I'm saying is that the reason for doing something like this is not just for the physical benefit. Obviously, it is because of the mental benefit. It is because of that discipline, right? And I think about it, one way to think about this, as most of us are really into physical fitness, with this podcast and everything, is that if you look at like kind of Eastern philosophy, right, the path to enlightenment, right? I'm not like super well versed in this, but there's the yogis, right? And I think there's like 3 paths of yoga, right? One of them is sort of like the spiritual. This is like the becoming a really wise person in understanding the spiritual aspect of things, right? Another one of the paths is like I forget, it's like the wizard, the whatever. But another one of the paths is through intelligence, through knowledge, right? Through gaining a superior knowledge and understanding of the world and all these things, right? But then there's a third path, which is basically the physical. And that's the path through like physical discipline and hardship. And the point that I make with that is just that you become enlightened to some degree. Like when you push yourself, if you've ever grind as hard as you can, like push yourself to the physical limits of life, it almost is this transcendental experience where you expand, your consciousness expands from going through pain. So pain is not something that we should shy away from. Pain is something that is profound in our growth experience, and we need to experience pain. But the only pain that we really benefit from in life is pain that we willingly bring upon ourselves. If pain is thrust upon us and we are an unwilling subject of that pain, it usually causes damage to us, right? Again, we could go back to the Stoic philosophy and the Stoic idea. I think they had this concept of the cart dragging the dog, right? So if you imagine a cart and you've got a dog that's tied to the cart, the dog can fight the cart and try and go its own direction and be dragged along, or the dog can see the direction that the cart is going and can go in that direction of the cart. And that's sort of the challenge that we're faced every day. So, figuring things out through pain is often, and again, like I said, there's other ways that other people sort of reach what I would call enlightenment or expand their consciousness. But the physical way is a very sure and absolute way. Like if you start pushing, if you train for some ridiculously hard endurance event or something really hard like getting on the bodybuilding stage and getting down to, single digit body fat, like 5-6% body fat or whatever, you're going to go through a religious experience. You're going to change. Your consciousness level will change just from going through that amount of pain and discomfort.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I've tried to do it without the physical. So like I've read some of Eckhart Tolle's books multiple times, but it's hard to go through that pain without. I mean, it's not hard to, but it's easier to get that pain physically because it will 100% come if you just stick it out long enough. And yeah, you're completely right with the, when you go through like a bodybuilding show or like an ultra marathon or something, it's that last period of time where you have to push yourself that you actually grow. And like you said with the stoicism, it's pain that you can completely exit right away. If you want to stop, you could stop running straight away. You could say, okay, I'm done. I quit. I'm going to get a taxi home. Or I could say, I'm going to go and KFC and just get out of my misery. But you're enduring the pain in spite of knowing that you can actually remove yourself from that. So it's not the same as somebody in Africa that's like, say, starving to death. They don't have a choice. This pain is inflicted on them. I think I read it sometime. I read it before where, somebody said like, the pain you'd run, if you had to run a marathon and you chose to run it versus if someone pointed a gun to your head and said, I'm going to shoot you if you don't run it. It's the same physical experience, but you would experience it differently on a mental level because one is enforced on you and the other is chosen to kind of grow your mindset. So I guess there's kind of a concept or a belief with people who are like really successful in business that they're like the fat CEO or they haven't got time to work out or to be in good shape. What kind of advice would you give to that person, or how does your diet and your training set up? I know you obviously run, but how does that look on a day-to-day basis? Are you extremely busy with your business? I know you've kind of explained everything on your YouTube channel in terms of how you make your money. So you have different revenue streams, but what's your day-to-day kind of training and nutrition look like to stay in like top tip shape essentially, but also still stay on top of your business game so that it doesn't affect it? I mean, some athletes, right, they'll train so much that it affects all the other areas of their life. How do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of it's based on this concept of the different phases in life, because one of the things that I hear a lot from a lot of like successful people like CEOs and things like that of these companies is one of the most common echoed things, which is unfortunately a lot of bullshit, but I don't fault the people that say it because they just don't understand. They don't know better. They don't remember. Is they say, I wish that when I was younger, I wouldn't have worked so hard. And that's bullshit. The reason why is because they're saying that from where they are now, because they don't have to work so hard now, but you have to grind and you have to hustle. And so, the reason why I'm starting it this way is because you have these different phases, right? If you're just starting out, right, you're a young guy, whatever, you're trying to start a business or something, or you're trying to really make it in this world, you're going to have to work like 80, 90-hour weeks, right? In fact, you have this triangle, right? There's you've got fitness, you've got making money, and you've got girls, right? And you're going to pick two of those at any given time in life, right? You can only pick two. That's it. At least during the grind phase. Then you can be more balanced later on. But typically that's it. And so, you've got to really put in that time and that effort at that point. But what happens, and what happened for me, is that, and I did this. I grinded out. When I was starting out, I was working a full-time job. So let me compare my routine of what it was to what it is now, right? So when I started out, I would wake up in the morning before work. I'd go for either a run or lift, and then I would work my full-time job for 8 hours, and then I would take a bit of a break to have a little bit of dinner, and then immediately afterwards I'd go back to work, working about 4 to 5 hours a night on recording videos, doing my blog posts, doing all the stuff to build my business. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And on weekends, I just pretty much worked, for like 10 hours every weekend. And I just did that for 2.5 years. And that's what it took me to do what I call pushing the boulder up the hill. So if you think about it, when you're starting out, it's like you're pushing this boulder up a hill. It's really, really hard. And you can't take a break and you can't stop, because if you stop, it starts to roll backwards, right? And you lose ground. So you have to push, 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 right? You burn out, but you keep pushing anyway, because that's what it takes. You got to keep on pushing. And then at some point, though, you get to the crest of the hill, like the top, the summit, and the boulder starts to roll down the other side of the hill. And when the boulder's rolling down the other side of the hill, you can kind of ride on the boulder. You give it a little push here or there, but it's pretty much going on its own, right? It doesn't require that much. I mean, if you want to like increase things and you want to make it roll really fast, you got to push really hard. But for the most part, it's going on its own. And that's where I'm at now, right? Is because I have these businesses running. I've got some real estate investment that's kicking off cash. Right, it's passive income. I don't even have to work. Right, that real estate income will generate revenue. Even the businesses that I have, I've got so much organic traffic coming onto my websites and YouTube channels that it's just money coming in. Right, I don't have to do a lot of work for that. I still do a lot of work, but it's a different phase, right? And it's kind of like dues paid. You have to pay the dues in order to get to that. There's a really good book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I also recommend that book. And in that, there's this part where he talks about this guy, this older gentleman in his Cadillac or whatever it is with the top down, and he's smoking a stogie, and his license plate says dues paid. And I think that's a really good image. Book. And so anyway, so that's the phase that I'm at now, and you have to there's no shortcut. You have to grind. You have to go through a grind. Everyone does in order to get there. And so now I can structure my life a little bit differently, like based on what I want to do. So obviously with running an ultra marathon, my life has been a little bit more chaotic because I'm running 80 miles a week when I'm at the peak of my training. And so 80 miles a week is like, something like 10 to 12 hours of running per week. So my typical day might look like this now. It would be wake up in the morning at like 5:45 a.m., go out and go for a 10-mile run, which might take like 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours, get back, take a shower, log into my computer, start working, whether it be recording YouTube videos. I've got like a task board that I have planned out, and I typically will work until either like 3 to 4 o'clock p.m. and then I'll either hit the gym if it's a lifting day, or sometimes go for a second run, and then I'll eat dinner, enjoy some time, and then I typically go for a walk about an hour or two every night. And that's kind of my schedule. But some days, I might not really do any work at all, or some days I might take a week and just go travel somewhere and not do anything except for keep up my training. And so, but definitely when I started training for this ultra marathon, it definitely took up a lot more time. And I'm tired all the time, right? I just want to sleep and just want to eat. And so things have definitely become more difficult, but I can allow myself to do that because I don't really have to be working like 12 hours a day in the business like I used to when I was getting started. So that's, that I think that's kind of the way that I view it. That's why I don't want to just like give an answer, because like I said, it's like it depends on what stage you are at in life. And if you haven't gone through the grind, if you haven't done the hustle, there's no shortcut. You just have to do it. You're going to have to fucking face the pain and do that, and you're going to have to give up everything. And the other reason I think I can do some of these things and what I did back then is I don't watch TV. I don't watch sports. I know a lot of people like sports, but to me it's just a complete waste of time. There's absolutely no value in it at all. I pretty much avoid the news, right? I avoid all of the kind of bullshit that doesn't actually help me in my life. And when I'm running all these miles, I'm listening to audiobooks the whole time. So I'm getting my education there. And I've just cut out all the crap out of my life, right? Only the valuable things. Not that I don't enjoy myself. I might watch a movie, or I might even play a video game from some time, but I plan out that time, and I try not to waste it.
So based off of your kind of triangulation there, we can make some assumptions. So if a guy is like rich and good with women, he's probably broke or business sucks. And if he is rich and is good with women, he probably has shitty fitness. Is that correct? If you can kind of triangulate that, or do you kind of work on one area and then kind of keep that at a certain level and then work on another area?
Yeah, you kind of have to, it's like juggling, right? In fact, it fits perfectly, because when you juggle 3 balls, you can only hold 2 at a time, right? So there's always going to be one in the air, but you got to switch, right? So it's best to focus on maybe two of those areas of the triangle at one given time. But if you ignore a third one, you're going to live a pretty incomplete life. It's not going to be good, and you're going to suffer. So you eventually have to switch back and go through these phases, right? But as a young man, right, if you're starting out, right, if I were to give advice to guys that are maybe in their 20s or early 20s, I would say focus primarily on the business and the fitness side of things, and get some, obviously develop some social skills and things like that, but don't worry so much about women right now. Like become the man that you want to become, establish yourself, right? And then later on you can sort of switch the triangle, and maybe you just work on the fitness and the women for a while. And even this, right? I mean, if you build a physique, right, like this was really tested for me during the COVID-19 stuff, is because I haven't been to the actual gym for 3 months, but I'm just as ripped and jacked as ever. Like, I mean, I'm doing some push-ups, and every once in a while I can go and lift some weights on the neighbor's bench, but I am not doing the 2-hour workouts that I was doing 3 times a week before. And really, like, once you've built up a good physique and you've built the muscle, as long as you're not starving yourself, you're going to pretty much hold on to. And even if you do lose the muscle, you can gain it back like so quickly because you have that muscle memory, that mitochondrial changes that have happened. So if you work on your fitness and you work on your business, like those things will kind of stick around, and you can put less effort into them, right? It's so much harder to build a physique than it is to maintain one, right? To maintain at least the muscle part of it, right? Maybe
For sure, yeah.
We try to get fat real quick when maintenance is kind of hard in that respect. But the muscle part of it, like putting in that effort, once you've put in that effort, that kind of sticks around for with little maintenance, right? Like it's in order for me to get my physique, I had to put in a lot of hours every week and really push it. But I can maintain this physique if I just lift 2 times a week for about an hour each session. I could probably maintain the exact physique that I have.
Yeah, you're dead right on that. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been really insightful and really enjoyable to talk to you. Where can people find more about what you do, your services, etc.?
Yeah, so thanks Adam, I appreciate it. The best place is just to go to bulldogmindset.com and take the Bulldog quiz. Go take this. It's a 10-question quiz, and it'll tell you what your Bulldog score is, whether you have the Bulldog mindset, and so you can identify the areas that you need to work on. And then I've got some videos that follow up that tell you how to improve your score and the things you can work on, some real practical, pragmatic advice. So just go to bulldogmindset.com. You'll see a pop-up, or you can click the quiz button, and then from there, I'll give you a lot of information and a lot of videos and things that will help you in your journey.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on again. Appreciate it. So, what a good episode. I really enjoyed speaking to John. I really, really like to surround myself with people in positions that I'd like to be in. It comes back to that quote by Jim Rohn, the famous entrepreneur. You are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I think in everyday life, we can kind of see that, bodybuilders hang around with other bodybuilders. People who are broke and have a broke mindset tend to hang around with other people who have a broke mindset. People who are victims tend to hang around with other people who are victims, or in the sense of a victim mentality. So I hope you took something from this, and what I really took from it is you push yourself mentally every single day in order to grow. So kind of like in the gym where you're pushing yourself, you're causing stress, like good stress. The same thing you want to do for your brain or your mind is to push it beyond what it's currently capable of, so then you can grow and step into that. And I think John's story is really, really, it really hits home with a lot of people, I think, because if you check him out, he really did come from, an average background, which I think most people listen to this podcast do come from. He was out of shape. He was kind of really unmotivated and lazy when he was younger. And then something just clicked one day, and he decided that, it's up to me. I make my choices, and I've got to, if I want to change, it's up to me to make that decision. So really, really enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed it too. I hope you took something from it. If you have any feedback,